On my 70th birthday, my family surprised me with a ticket to an old age home. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I smiled. Because at that moment, I realized something. I had become a guest in the house I built, a visitor in the lives I helped raise. And that smile, it came from pain I didn't know how to speak aloud. They all stood there. My son, Arman, his wife, Priya, my granddaughter, sweet little Nia, who held the envelope with both her tiny hands, smiling because she thought it was a present I'd love. They had even ordered a cake, chocolate, my favourite. There were balloons. The number 70 floated above my head, golden and proud. And there, on the table beside my tea, sat the envelope. I thought maybe it was a photo album, or maybe a letter from my late husband's family. Something meaningful. But when I opened it, I saw the pamphlet first. Peaceful Greens retirement home, all smiles, sunlight, gardens, and safety. Then the letter, typed neatly on the family computer, signed with love. Today we'd like to give you a gift, Amma, a place where you can rest, relax, and not worry about day-to-day life anymore. Those were the words. I looked up. My daughter-in-law avoided my eyes. My son looked relieved, a gentle kind of relief, like someone had finally set down a heavy bag he'd been carrying for too long. And Naya? She clapped and said, "Grandma, they have a piano there. You can play again." I didn't know what to say. My heart felt like it was holding its breath. So I smiled. I wasn't always old. I wasn't always someone to be placed. I was once a young bride, full of dreams. I married Rajiv when I was 22. We didn't have much, just a one-room flat and shared teacups, but we built everything together. I remember holding Arman, our only child, in my arms, rocking him in the small swing Rajiv made with ropes from the ceiling. We worked hard, saved every rupee, went without so Arman could have new shoes every school year. Rajiv passed away when Arman was just 16, a heart attack that came too early and too cruel. From then on, I became both mother and father. I worked at the school canteen, handing out hot lunch meals every single day for 25 years. I woke up at 4, made fresh food, took 3 buses. I never missed a day, not even when I had a fever, because my son deserved everything. People used to say to me, "Chitra, you're so strong." And I would only smile, not because I didn't feel pain, but because nobody had the time to hear it. When Arman graduated and got a job at the bank, I bought sweets for the whole neighbourhood. He became independent, started wearing tidy shirts and clean shoes. He made me feel like every sacrifice had bloomed into something beautiful. Then he fell in love with Priya. She came from a nice family, educated, polite. She would come over on Sundays in the beginning, sit with me while I made dosas, ask me how my knees were, bring small gifts, a scarf, sometimes a sweet box. When they got married, they said, "Amma, don't live alone. Come stay with us." And I did. Their house was bigger than ours ever was. 3 bedrooms, a nice kitchen, even curtains I wasn't allowed to wash myself. Too delicate. In the beginning, it was nice. I made tea in the mornings, sometimes went for a walk, watched Nia when she was born. She was my sunshine. Even if the grown-ups spoke in whispers, she always ran to me with open arms. I spent my days folding laundry, trying new recipes, calling old friends, and watching the plants grow on the balcony. But over time, things began to change. Little things, unspoken things. A sigh when I walked into the room. A lukewarm thank you when I made dinner. A sudden silence when I entered from the hallway. My cups in the kitchen slowly got moved to a separate shelf, so they don't mix with the bone china set. I once overwatered Priya's new plant. That evening she asked me, very calmly, not to touch things she bought, so I didn't. One time I heated roti on their new pan and scratched it by accident. They were kind, but I heard them talk that night. "She won't listen. I feel like we've lost our space," Priya quietly said. "She means well," Arman replied. "Give her time." Time. Yes, time. Time makes you quieter, not because you have less to say, but because you're never asked. I began eating early sometimes, before them, just so they could eat without fuss. I didn't want to be a burden. If I noticed a stain on the curtain, I kept quiet. If the child's toy made the floor messy, I picked it up silently. One afternoon, when I corrected Nia's homework with a red pen, Priya gently said, "Amma, she has a tutor now. It's okay." So I stepped back, again. I started making fewer phone calls, stopped listening to old songs out loud, even my radio. I began wearing headphones, not because they asked me to, but because I knew. I knew I was starting to take up space. And space in someone else's home can feel like a favour. I remember the rain one evening. I stood at the balcony holding my warm tea, looking at the road below. Nia came running out and stood beside me. "Grandma," she said. "Yes, my flower?" I smiled. "Will you always stay with us?" I had to pause, swallow, feel the warmth of her little hand against mine. "I will always stay in your heart," I said softly. She giggled, not understanding, but I knew. So when the day came, my birthday, and the cake was cut, and the picture was taken, and the envelope was opened, I smiled. Yes, I smiled, because part of me had been waiting for the quiet to become a sentence, for the silence to turn into a signature. And there it was. After my birthday, things didn't change all at once. There were still kind mornings, still cups of tea left by my door, still Nia's arms wrapping around my waist after school. But there was also something else now, a date. The admission letter said I could move into Peaceful Greens in 3 weeks. They had already paid the deposit. They said it was an open date, that I could take my time. But in their eyes, I could see they hoped I wouldn't. I didn't tell anyone how I spent those 3 weeks. Each day I walked through the house like it might be my last time seeing it. I opened drawers I hadn't in years. I touched the edges of old photographs. I smelled the cupboard where Nia's baby clothes were still folded at the back. I found a letter Rajiv wrote me right before he died, a torn piece of paper with a note. "You've been the heart of this family. Keep beating, no matter what." I folded it neatly and put it in my pillowcase, because I didn't know what I was allowed to carry with me anymore. Who decides that? Evenings became harder. The dinner table had always been our place to sit together. We talked there, laughed there, shared life there. But slowly, Priya started serving me food earlier. "Just in case you're tired, Amma." She always spoke politely, but she said a lot, between her words. One day, when Nia asked me, "Grandma, will you come with us to the beach next Sunday?" Priya quickly said, "We'll see, sweetie. It might be too much for Amma." Too much. I smiled again. There was one day Arman came home from work looking nervous. He sat down beside me, fidgeting with his phone. "Amma," he began, "I hope you're not sad. We're only thinking of your comfort." I nodded. "What if I'm already comfortable here?" I asked softly. He looked caught. "But you deserve your own space, your own room, privacy. There, people will look after you. Here, we don't want you to feel left out." I looked at him. My son. The boy I raised on my own. The one I fed with spoons when he had the flu at 10. The one I sat beside when his stomach ached at midnight. The one who cried in my arms when his first job interview didn't go well. And now, he worried I'd feel left out. Not because he didn't love me, but because somewhere along the way, I had become extra. Not unwanted, but unnecessary. One afternoon, I heard Priya on the phone with her friend. She spoke softly. "But the kitchen walls are thin." "No, she's still here. The home said she can come any time, just waiting for her to decide. Arman doesn't want to push her, but I can tell he's tired. I feel like I've been managing everything." Then a pause. "No, she's not wrong. It's not that. She's just always around. I need my own space, my own life. I leaned against the wall quietly. I counted each word as a thread being snipped from a shawl I had once wrapped around this family. The next morning I woke up before sunrise. I boiled milk, added a little cardamom, made Arman's favourite upma the way Rajiv used to like it. I placed a plate on the table, then another, then one for Nia, cut into star shapes. I didn't make one for myself. When they came out, I just said gently, "Eat before it gets cold." And I went outside to the veranda. I watched the world wake up with the same question I'd been asking myself for weeks. Where do mothers go when they're no longer needed? I tried to stay busy. I joined a small prayer group nearby. There were other women there, widows like me, older ladies, most living alone. I asked one of them gently, "What is it like, living away from family?" She gave me a soft smile. "Peaceful," she said, "but sometimes too quiet." Then she touched my hand. "But at least when no one's around, you can cry as loud as you like." I think that's what scared me the most about leaving. Not the place, not the people, but the silence. When you live with your family, even if they don't speak to you, you can hear doors opening. You can hear keys, music from someone's room, laughter on a call. But in a home for the elderly, the silence is full, not empty, but final. Like a full stop at the end of a sentence no one's writing anymore. The days moved faster as the departure drew near. I started folding my clothes, packing only what I felt was necessary. Saris I hadn't worn in years, a small box of jewellery, one photo of Rajiv, one of little Arman standing proudly in his school uniform, and one tiny pair of embroidered booties I knitted when Nia was born. I placed them all in a small suitcase. The same suitcase I had used when I came to this house 11 years ago. Now, I was leaving it. Like a guest. A long-staying guest who had finally read the room. One night, Nia slipped into my room while I was folding socks. "Grandma, are you really going to that other house?" I paused. "Yes, darling," I said, "for a little while." Her lips quivered. She sat beside me on the bed. Did I do something wrong? The question hit my chest like a stone tossed in still water. "No, my love," I said quickly, hugging her close. "You did everything right." "Then why do you have to go?" I didn't have the courage to tell her the truth, that I didn't fit anymore. So I stroked her hair. When you plant a tree in a small pot, and it grows very big, sometimes you have to move the pot to give it more space. She looked up. "But you're not a tree," I smiled. "No, I'm not. But maybe they need more space to grow, and I don't want to be in the way." For the next few days I could feel they were tiptoeing around me. Arman offered to help pack. Priya made tea for me in the evenings, something she hadn't done in months. They were trying, and that's what made it harder, because good people can still hurt you, softly, gently, without meaning to, and love can still fade in corners of the house where words no longer live. And when love becomes quiet, it begins to feel a lot like emptiness. The night before I was supposed to leave, I couldn't sleep. I lay on that bed, the same one I'd slept in since moving to Arman's house, same window next to me, same scent of peppermint oil from my hair, and yet something felt unfamiliar. I turned over slowly, reached under my pillow and pulled out Rajiv's note again. "Keep beating, no matter what." How does a heart keep beating when the rooms it filled slowly start to empty? How do you tell yourself it's not rejection, just life? I closed my eyes and whispered, "Maybe I loved too much. Or maybe I stayed too long." I woke up early and made one last breakfast, just toast and tea. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would make them feel guilty. That's the strange thing about being a mother. Even when your heart aches, you still worry about making someone else uncomfortable. I laid out the cups, cleaned the sink, wiped down the counter. I didn't want to leave anything behind except clean memories. Nia was still asleep. Armin was in the shower. Priya was warming milk. I looked at them. I wanted to say, "I love you." But I didn't want to make it hard for them. So instead, I quietly stepped away. Back in my room, I sat at the edge of the bed and looked at the open drawer in my bedside table. Inside were years of quiet love. Threads and needles from when I stitched torn pockets. Old bills I kept, even though no one asked me to. A tiny paper flower Nia made me 4 birthdays ago, faded and crumpled. I touched each of those things with soft fingers. Then I closed the drawer. And I knew. That moment, not the celebration, not the letter, that drawer shutting was my real goodbye. At 11 a.m, the car from Peaceful Greens came. A gentle driver stepped out, folded his hands politely and took my bag. It felt so official. I waited in the hallway. Armin helped with my sweater. Priya held Nia's hand. No one looked me in the eyes directly. I didn't blame them. Sometimes endings aren't loud, they're just blurry. As I walked out, Nia ran after me. "Grandma, wait!" I turned, my heart breaking at her small footsteps. She hugged me tight, buried her face in my side. "I don't want you to go," she whispered. I stroked her hair, kissed her forehead. "I'm not going far," I said. "And you can visit. You'll like the garden. They have birds." "When will you come back?" Children always ask that. "When will you come back?" The truth? Some goodbyes don't come with return dates. So I told her softly, "I'll always be right here." And I tapped gently on her heart. In the car, I didn't look back. I didn't want to see the door shut behind me, because I knew that was the same door I opened 11 years ago, with hope. And now, it stood like a finish line. I don't blame them. My son, his wife. They were trying to live. And sometimes, in trying to make room for their present, people gently erase the past. The drive to Peaceful Greens was quiet. Outside, the world continued just like always. Fruit sellers calling out, temple bells in the distance, children in uniforms crossing the street. And there I was, a 70-year-old woman with a single suitcase and a drawer full of memories left behind. When we arrived, a nurse with a kind smile greeted me. "Mrs. Rao?" she asked. I nodded. "We've been expecting you. There's a room ready on the 2nd floor, garden view." I looked around. The home was clean, bright, simple, not sad, but final. A man played chess by the window. A lady watered a plant. There was no chaos, no rush, but also no one waiting for me. The nurse walked me to my room. Light yellow curtains, a small writing table, a bed with white sheets, a cupboard, fresh towels, a small silver bell to ring if I needed help. It was nice, safe, but not home. Home sometimes is not about comfort. It's about belonging. I sat on the bed, looked out the window at the garden, watched the leaves dance in the wind. A sparrow flew down and pecked at crumbs on the floor below. I stayed like that for a long time. No words, just space. Space I now had. Space they thought I needed. By evening I heard other voices, gentle footsteps, wheelchairs rolling, teacups clinking. An old woman peeked into my room. "New?" she asked. I nodded. She smiled and said, "It gets easier." Then she left. I wondered how many people in this building once sat where I was, grieving quietly, not a death, but a movement, a shift, from centerpiece to shelf. That night I slipped under the fresh sheets. I held Rajiv's photo to my chest, said a quiet prayer. I didn't cry, not that night, because I had done my crying already. In the years of not being asked for advice, in the meals quietly skipped, in the doors shut softly to preserve space. The next morning, I put on my cream shawl and joined the others outside. They were reading newspapers, doing puzzles. A few were silent, staring at a wall or a cloud. I sat there, hands folded in my lap. And I wondered, How many of them had been told, "This is for your peace. This is what's best. We're doing this with love." And how many had smiled, instead of crying, just like me. Later that week, we had a small meet and greet among the residents. A man named Thomas told me he was once a professor. "Now," he chuckled, "my only lectures are to the pigeons." We all laughed softly. A woman named Asha shared that she used to dance when she was younger. Now she just taps her fingers on her lap, but the rhythm is still inside her. We were all stories, wrapped up, neatly placed, waiting to be remembered. When people say they live in a home now, it often sounds like a period, like the end. But for us, it's not the end. It's just another chapter. One not filled with children's feet running across the floor or someone calling out, "Ma, where's my shirt?" But filled with gentler things, like early sunrises, tea at 6, crossword puzzles, memories whispered into your own palm. Love still lives here, but in quieter ways. Days passed, slowly at first, then like clockwork. I began learning people's names, their stories. I started helping a nurse fold sheets, just like old times. It made me feel useful. I even taught a staff member how to make my style of lemon pickle. At night, I wrote in a notebook Rajiv once gave me. Just simple things. Clouds were thick today. Thought of Nia's dimples. Thomas dropped his spoon, said it meant something. Maybe it did. I don't feel like a mother here. I just feel like me. Not sure if that's better or worse. Then one Thursday, I received a letter, in soft handwriting, with stickers around the corners, from Nia. "Dear Grandma, I miss you. Mama says you're okay, but I want to come visit. I gave your old blue shawl to my doll. She says hi. Love you forever. Nia." I read it 10 times, maybe 11. Then I placed it under my pillow, right next to Rajiv's note. I smiled for real that day. It's been 3 months now. 3 months since I left the house I once called home. The room I once rocked my granddaughter to sleep in feels like another life. Now this little room, with pale yellow curtains and a wobbly ceiling fan, is mine. My things have found their place. My books on the table, my shawl folded neatly over the chair, the old framed photo of Rajiv on my bedside. At first, I worried I wouldn't sleep here. But I do. Sometimes even better than before. There are no doors quietly closing, no hushed voices through thin walls. Just silence, clean and clear, the kind you start to make peace with. The days here have their own rhythm. Mornings begin with prayer music echoing faintly from someone's open window. Breakfast is always warm, poha, sometimes upma, and always a banana. We sit together, the same faces, the same gentle greetings. And slowly, I've grown to care for these strangers. These women with silver hair and soft smiles. These men with fragile hands but sharp memories. There's something tender that lives in places like this. A quiet understanding. A shared truth. We've all lived whole lives, loved deeply, lost silently. And now we are here, holding each other's presence like soft blankets on cold days. I talk most often with Asha, the former dancer. She used to teach classical Bharatanatyam in her younger days. Now her knees ache if she walks more than 10 minutes. But when she sits, hands on lap, she still moves her fingers to a beat only she remembers. Sometimes we sit together under the mango tree in the courtyard. She hums. I write. We don't need to talk much. She once told me, "You think the world forgot you, but sometimes it's nice to be forgotten. You stop performing and just breathe." She's right. In this place, I've stopped performing. I no longer feel watched, weighed, or worn out trying to fit in. I just exist. And somehow, that's enough. And yet, every now and then, I miss them. Arman, Priya, Nia. I don't miss the sharpness or the distance or the quiet disapproval. I miss the moments that came before all that. Arman as a teenager helping me carry groceries. Priya sitting with me the first week she moved in, asking for my rasam recipe. Nia falling asleep halfway through a story, her little fingers curled around mine. I miss belonging to them, even though I know that needing someone can sometimes make them retreat further. Once a week, the nurse brings us letters if we get any. Most weeks I don't receive one. But sometimes there's a small envelope from Nia. She writes in big, uneven letters, draws tiny hearts, tells me about her school projects, her new friend called Sana, and the fact that she won second prize in a painting competition. I write back every time. I tell her about a bird I saw, or the flower that bloomed late in the garden, or the time Mr. Thomas spilled tea while reading the news and blamed it on the title. In one letter, Nia asked, "Do you still miss us?" I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I wrote back, "Missing someone doesn't mean you should be with them. Sometimes, love just changes homes." There was one afternoon when Priya called. It took me by surprise. She began with pleasantries, asking how my health was, telling me they had sent a parcel of sweets for Diwali. Then she paused. Her voice softened. "Amma, I'm sorry if we made you feel unwanted." The silence between us was full, almost heavy. "I know you did what you thought was right," I said. "But did we?" she whispered. That's when I realized she was not heartless, just tired. Like all of us, trying to balance being a wife, a mother, a person. Maybe like me, she also felt invisible in her own way. "I forgive you," I said, and I meant it. Not because she asked, but because I couldn't carry the weight forever. A month later, Arman visited. He brought Nia. They came quietly during visiting hours, with a fruit basket and a hand-painted card. Arman looked older, more tired, but there was softness in his eyes. He hadn't seen me since I left. When he hugged me, his arms were hesitant at first, like he didn't know if I'd let him. But I did. I hugged him tight, the kind of hug only a mother can give, the kind that says, "Even if you push me away, I never stopped being yours." He didn't say much, but he didn't need to. Sometimes presence is enough. Nia ran around the garden, picking fallen flowers, showing them to everyone like precious stones. She sat beside me, held my hand and asked, "Are you happy here now?" And for the first time I said honestly, "Yes, I am." Not out of pride, not to protect her heart, but because it was starting to be true. That evening after they left, I sat under the orange sky. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply. I thought about my life, everything I had built, everything I had lost, and everything I was still becoming. I am not just someone's mother, not only someone's grandmother. I am Chitra, 70 years old, a woman of stories, softness, and strength. A woman who once gave her best years to others, and now was learning how to return some of that love to herself. Sometimes I help the staff here with small things, folding towels, fetching books for the others, counting medicines carefully from the wooden box. One of the nurses told me, "You make the place feel warm," and something inside me melted. Because for so long I felt like I was taking up space. Now I was adding to it. In the common room, we started music sessions once a week, and last Thursday I played the piano again, just a simple tune. Hesitant fingers, but steady. Everyone clapped. One man cried slightly. He said it reminded him of his wife. That night, I slept with peaceful dreams, because the music I had muted for so many years was back. Now, every evening, I light one small lamp by my window. It flickers gently in the wind. I pray softly for Arman, Priya, and Nia. I ask for their happiness, their peace, and sometimes I ask them to remember me, not just as a grandmother, not just as a burden gently removed, but as a woman who held their world quietly for so many years without asking anything in return. It's quiet tonight. Most of the others have gone to bed. The halls are dim. The nurses are doing their rounds. I'm sitting at my small desk by the window, writing this, my little story. I don't know if it will ever be read by many, but I know one heart that needs to read it. Has. Mine. You see, for so long I looked for my value in how much I gave. I cooked, I cleaned, I helped, I stayed quiet. I thought that if I loved well enough, behaved well enough, gave up enough, they would remember. They would hold me close. Let me stay. But life doesn't always work like that. Sometimes love changes shape. It moves rooms. It grows in one corner while growing cold in another. For a while, I thought being sent here meant I'd failed. That somehow I wasn't a good enough mother. Not warm enough. Not kind enough. Or maybe too much of something. But now I see the truth. It wasn't failure. It was a passing of seasons. Just like trees drop their leaves to rest, families change too. And peace isn't always found in the place you expect. Yesterday, I looked at my hands. These old hands that once braided Armand's hair before school, that kneaded dough every morning, that held his report cards and ironed his shirts. These same hands now press soft towels, turn pages of magazines, hold the hands of other women who are learning, like me, to feel seen again. I often wish someone had told me earlier that we are more than what we give, that simply existing, quietly, honestly, is enough. I'm not angry. Anger is too heavy at this age. I am not bitter. Bitterness takes up space where grace can grow. Instead, I've chosen something else. Understanding. I understand now that people do what they can, and sometimes they don't know how to carry the ones who once carried them. And that's okay. It hurts. Yes. It lingers. Yes. But it doesn't have to define the ending. I still speak to Rajiv at night, in the quiet. I tell him about Nia's letters, about Armand's visit, about the mango tree that just bloomed a flower this morning. I imagine him smiling, saying what he always said. You've been the heart. Just keep beating. So I do. Each day I wake up. I water the plants, listen to Asha's humming, eat my fruit, write down one thing I'm thankful for, and silently, lovingly, I keep beating. Tonight, before I lay down, I lit my small diya, the one I place by my window each night. From the outside, it's just a faint glow, but for me, it's a sign that even here in this quiet chapter of my life, something still shines. So if you've reached the end of this story, let me leave you with one truth I've gathered, like pebbles in my pocket. Love doesn't disappear when its form changes, and when you feel left behind, you are not unloved. You are growing roots in different soil. You are not just someone's mother, not just someone's grandmother, not just a quiet figure in old photos. You are you, and that is enough. On my 70th birthday, my family surprised me with a ticket to an old age home. I smiled, not because I was happy, but because I knew it was time to step into a new kind of strength. Today I still smile, but now it's real. Because I found something here I wasn't looking for. Myself.